Living life on a merry-go-round, and you can't find a fighter. I see it in you, so we gon' walk it out. Ooh, mountain, we gon' walk it out. And mountain, and I'll rise like the day. I rise up. I rise unafraid. I rise up. And I do it 1,000 times again. And I rise up. I like the waves. I rise up. In spite of the ache, I rise up. And I do it 1,000 times again.
Hello, everyone. For those that are just joining us for the first time, my name is Sparkle Johnson. I am an intern studying for my master's degree in social work. So I am interning with the Enough Initiative. Tonight, we will be discussing domestic violence in the African American community. For many of us, it's hard to discuss domestic violence in general, but especially amongst African Americans. The National Black Women's Health Project, Project identified domestic violence as the number one public health issue for women of African ancestry. There are a number of contributing factors from difficult in shelters or getting treatment, lack of cultural competence, not trusting law enforcement, and racial disloyalty. Joining us to discuss this topic tonight will be Diajane. Diaji, right? Am I correct? I want to make sure I get your names right. Yolene and Sharissa, right?
Sharissa.
Thank you so much. I'm going to introduce Yolene first. She is the Senior Nursing Director of the University of Michigan Health System. She has a Bachelor of Science in Nursing and a Master's in Organization Leadership and Administration. She is the Board President of Education for Lincoln Consolidated Schools, where she has been a member since 2010. She is a mother of a 17-year-old daughter and a 16-year-old. She is most importantly a survivor of domestic violence as well. Our second guest is Diaji, sorry. Thank you. After Diaji, right? So in the future, they'll have your name right when they come to find. After a traumatic experience in 2018, she went on to start a nonprofit organization, I Am With You. Her nonprofit provides resources to individuals who are attempting to escape harmful situations. She has also went on to publish a journal and devotional, I Am With You, and all proceeds go to provide shelter for victims. Our third guest is Sharissa Allen. And Sharissa has had a career in social work for over 25 years. She was given the opportunity to touch many lives in a positive way through her work. She has worked on several committees throughout her life in church, the community, and through her career. She's committed to women and is not limiting her commitment just to her field. She's devoted to making changes and transforming lives of women everywhere. She's the owner and operator of Do You See What I See, LLC. She is a motivational, inspirational speaker and a transformation life coach. She tackles tough issues that women face women face to help them live more productive, healthy lives. And she's committed to educating them on how to become strong, independent, and loving women. Our host for tonight, as you all know, is Nicole Beverly, who is a clinical social worker and a psychotherapist. But most importantly, she's the co-founder of the Enough Initiative and president. So please stay tuned as we discuss domestic violence in the African American community.
Thank you, Sparkle. Okay. Hello, lovely ladies. Thank you so much for all taking time out of your, I know, very, very busy schedules and tonight to have this very important conversation, especially during Domestic Violence Awareness and Action Month. And that action part behind it, because we're done just having people talk the talk, we want to start seeing people walk the walk, including legislators, law enforcement, city officials, etc. So I'm so happy to have you all on. What I would love, just so people watching can kind of get an idea of your, you guys all have amazing backgrounds. I'll, introduced you all, very incredibly accomplished women, and it's amazing to have your insight.
Nicole must
I was gonna say Nicole froze.
She froze.
I'm freezing too. My thing is doing something weird over here.
So mine is good, but I just see Nicole is frozen and I can hear you though.
Yep, mine is good.
Yeah. So I wonder, does she know that she's frozen? I'm gonna send her a message like, you've been frozen for a bit.
And I took my phone upstairs.
Well, I'm gonna, I brought it just in case there were glitches because it happened to me. Okay, she went out. Maybe she's gonna get out and come back in.
Yeah, mine keeps doing something weird too. So it clicked me out for a second.
Yeah, we did see when you went out for a second, but we didn't know if that was intentional or not. So
it just froze. It kicked me out.
Maybe Nicole's going to get back in now. So let's see.
Okay.
Yikes.
And we're live.
Yeah. Well, I wonder with Nicole being out, are the rest of us still on?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're still live, so we're going to have to.
I guess we'll go when she gets back on. I don't know. Should I just get started? I can tell the story. Do you want to go in the order in which she introduced us, and we can?
Let's do that.
Okay. Should I get started or wait a few minutes for Nicole, or what do you think?
You could probably start.
Yeah, we're live, so go ahead and start, and Nicole will come back in.
She'll jump back in. Okay. So, all right. So, well, we'll get going. I wrote down a couple of things because I didn't want to forget. Oh, there you are. We were going to go ahead and tell her. You were totally frozen and gone. We were going to tell our stories in the order we were introduced as well. We were killing. Is that okay?
Yeah, no, I think we addressed the problem. I'm hoping. So yes, please. Thank you.
Okay. I just wrote a couple things so I didn't forget. And so let me know if I get to, if I'm going really fast. But so I met my abuser in 1994. We started dating in 1997. We did, like probably some others. We had some fun and some good times, but I noticed really early on that he was periodically really, really angry about really small things. And I foolishly attributed that to having a strong personality, being passionate about things. Just for an example, once his brother was ill and hospitalized, my ex-husband yelled and cursed at me because I didn't immediately leave my job as an ER nurse to rush upstairs and talk to the staff where his brother was. So that's just one example of how I early on started to ignore red flags and obvious things that he had the potential for violence. We got married in 2000. He quit his job 3 weeks before our wedding. He said he was mad at the manager. He literally got up and walked out. I had a good job, and I could wait and hold him down for just a few weeks till we got back, and he'd get something different. He promised he'd get another job once we returned from our honeymoon, but he proceeded to have no job or small, poorly paying odd jobs over the next 18 years while he was working on poorly planned, failed, or just plain false entrepreneurial ventures. He mostly just hung out and lived off me. He criticized me a lot for my hard work. Jobs are for suckers, he said. More glaring red flags that I ignored. I remember the first time that he hit me. He cried afterwards. He said he was really sorry. And he brought me ice for my bloody nose and my black and blue lip. I loved him. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe the plans. I wanted to believe the apologies. I believed in us. So I continued to grow and advance professionally. I finished my master's degree. I became a nurse manager and then a nursing director at a major health system. I was elected to our local board of education. Then the verbal abuse got really, really bad because then it was, well, you're a good nurse, I guess, or you're a good board member, but you suck as a wife and as a mother because you just spend all your time climbing after that career. My children didn't see it that way. I literally spent all my time either working or with my kids. Whenever people complimented me professionally, he criticized me more. He took compliments to me as a criticism or a put down for him. My children adored me, some of their friends as well. He said I was a pushover and I was stupid, and that was the only reason why they liked me. He told me no other man would want me. He said really embarrassing things to and about me in front of other people in attempts to humiliate me. It took me many years to understand that that was really about keeping me down, not letting me feel good about myself, because then I might be able to really look at him and who he was about, what he was about. So for me, Shirley, as a professional and successful, strong Black woman, I couldn't be a domestic violence victim, right? I couldn't be. I just had a man with a bad temper, or we had some bad times, but I never wanted to acknowledge what was really going on. I tried to keep it all secret. I made excuses for anything and everything. One night he thought my best friend was trying to talk to me about leaving him or being with him. She wasn't, but that's what he thought because we were getting together and talking and laughing. That was the first time he got out a gun. He didn't point it at me. He didn't threaten me. He did threaten me, but he walked around with it. And because he didn't point it at me, that was my first excuse. Well, he didn't point it at me. He was just really mad. And he had it out while he was talking to me. He cried that night too. He was really sorry. He was feeling jealous and worried about losing me. So of course I wanted to forgive that too. So fast forward 6 years. I knew I was miserable and I knew I wanted out. I just didn't know how to get out. I didn't see the light at the end of the tunnel. I didn't know what to do. He hadn't paid bills for years. He was costing me money. I was completely embarrassed for other people to know what I had tolerated for so long. I was embarrassed for people to know the life I was living. And I just kept everything a secret and was trying to raise my children and live my life as a professional, as a mother, and didn't want anybody to know. So February 22nd of 2019, he got angry about yet another false narrative that he had fabricated due to what I now know was his low self-esteem. Then the yelling began. Then it got physical. The night ended with him pointing a shotgun at my head, telling me, "This is it for you." As I laid on the floor, he stood above me after having shoved me on the floor with that shotgun. My then 14-year-old son was there, yelling, crying, begging him not to pull the trigger and shoot me. My son is the only reason I'm still alive today. He told his then 15-year-old sister everything. That was the last day that my ex-husband lived in our house. I finally got strong. I knew then that everything had progressed, just like all the things I had read and seen but thought I wasn't part of. And I knew that the only next place to go was him pulling the trigger. And I would have no more opportunity to leave or to make any different decision or to be there for my children. So my divorce was final February 28th of 2020. And it's been the best year since I finally got out. I did learn that there is no domestic violence demographic. That's what I thought before. I thought that you can't be strong, successful, career-wise. You can't be a good mother. You can't be all these things and then still be a domestic violence victim. But I learned that all those things are what made me the strongest. All those things are what have helped me. And all those reasons why I was embarrassed and was trying to keep it a secret are the things that gave him strength. Those are the things that allowed him to continue to abuse me physically, verbally, for years. So I didn't think that would be that powerful to tell that. So that's all. Thanks.
You did an amazing job, and I know this was your first time really talking about it publicly. So your strength is amazing, and everything you said was so incredibly powerful. So thank you. Thank you for honoring us with sharing your story this way for the first
time. Thanks.
All right. Who wants to go next?
I'll go next because I'm not sure when they're going to call me to do the rest of my repairs. Well, I'm Diaji Hill. I am a physician assistant. I have a family practice here in Belleville. I've had it for about 3 years now. I co-own it with another physician assistant and a doctor. When I met my abuser, it was 2 years ago in 2018. I had just opened the practice actually and was not really looking to date. I am a widow of a fallen officer. I've been a widow now 7 years Monday. So I really wasn't looking to date, was not interested in anyone. Met my abuser online, and I don't do online dating or anything. We just actually happened, the way he presented himself, he needed help with he told me he needed help with getting a website or something started, and he saw that I had a nonprofit, and we just pretty much had small talk on social media only. And then when we decided to hook up and meet, I mean, he was pretty much a gentleman. He met me at a local grocer. I got in his car and we went to like the grocery. I mean, went out to eat. So it's not like he was very pushy. Of course, just very charming. Opened every door. Was very respectful. At some point, I want to say his mom even called while we were out, and he was yes, ma'am, and no, ma'am, and just very nice guy. Very nice looking, tall, dark, and handsome. I still at that point wasn't really interested in a dating thing. We were really just talking about his magazine. So I don't think I thought much of it at first. But what was happening in that first week is that he started to call a lot. And I have another nonprofit where I help single moms go to college. And I know this big fundraiser was coming up. So I didn't really have a lot of time to entertain a relationship, but he just kind of took a lot of my time, and he did a lot of FaceTiming. This was all new to me because I'm an old school technology relationship girl. So this FaceTiming all day was a little like, okay. And then he was like 10 years younger than me. So I didn't really, just like he's a younger guy, this is what they do, I guess, whatever. But the problem that I realized that was happening is that he was really starting to control me. And it was almost a web before I realized I felt like I always had to answer his call. And it's just weird things. My first initial red flag was probably, it was a few little ones, but the first initial red flag, because I didn't know anything. I didn't know too much about him. I did meet his mom kind of early on. But the first initial flag was, I told him that I would come over and I would help him do something with his website. And at this point, because it took a minute before we were comfortable enough to even go to each other's homes, because it took a minute for him to come to mine. But when I went to his home, this particular night, when my kids have activities, I'll be over a little later than usual. And he was like, okay. And I want to say I told him I'd be there about 9, and it was 8:30, and I got a text that said something better to do. So that was a flag, because I did feel a little funny when he sent the text, but I was like, well, I can just do this another day, because we weren't really dating at the moment. But it was still another control thing that I didn't see. And when I got to this like evil look that he gave me, just stared me down, right? And I remember just looking like, are you okay? And he says, yeah, I'm fine. Come on in. That was another energy. source to show like it was a little bit of fear, but it wasn't. I didn't look too far into it because again, we weren't really dating. It's not like we were intimate or anything yet. And I only dated this guy for 3 months before I had to, right? So what ended up happening is over time he just got very he started to get very possessive with time. He got very, I don't know if I want to call it sneaky. It would be times I would be doing something and he would like kind of pop up where I was at, like just weird stuff. Like, okay, I'm coming home from work, we're gonna go out to eat, and it's like, okay, that's cool. And 2 seconds later, standing at the door, it's like, well, I thought you were on your way home. Like, how did you get? Or it was just weird things. Like, they would always get possessive with. We would always go to the gym. We started going to the gym together, and there would be times I'm in the gym, I can't see anything without glasses or my contacts. So his biggest thing accused me of looking at someone. I was just like, dude, I can't even see that far when I see a guy. And it's no, I'm not. I can't see who's over there. But those were things that were kind of, and he was doing those things pretty often. And his biggest thing was always accusing me of being with somebody else. And I think I felt the need to always kind of prove that I wasn't, because I knew I was a little older than him. So I always felt the need to prove that, hey, I'm this good girl. I'm, business. We're going to be cool. And before you know it, I found myself chasing, almost like chasing my tail, because I couldn't get to understand I'm not doing anything. Like literally, like more faithful to you in 3 weeks. I haven't done anything. I didn't realize that was the truth. And of course, the more time kept going, only a couple of weeks because we only dated 3 months, where things just started getting a little testy. Little things that he would do with the road rage, like if somebody did on the road and how he'd run through lights and chase cars down. It was just like, okay, the energy was different, and I wasn't used to that. But then it was like I still was kind of scared of him. I started building this fear. My 3 major incidents with him, at some point, we're getting kind of late in our 3 months to pay, but he always wanted me to take him for lunch because I was always with him. So this particular date we met for lunch. I remember he would always go to the restaurant. He would always sit on the same side of the booth as me. He would always kind of block me in the booth. I don't know. I thought it was cute. Like, okay, he just wants to sit next to me. As that was a control thing too. But he would sit right next to me. So on my Apple Watch, I want to say a picture came across, and it probably were from, and it was like we saw the picture. And he got so upset. Oh, and it's like, oh, that's my. And he says, hey, the same side of the with me, went on the other side, and he looked at me and said, "Are you pictures of guys that you dated?" At me very better not F table over. The answer be smashed the table, all the food was all over me. So at that point, this is probably not going to work. But at this point, he had already.
Can
you hear me?
You're cutting in and out a little bit.
Is it something?
Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Let me see if I can take this off. 1 second.
Apparently everyone's having issues because Nicole is saying that if she comments, she gets kicked out too. So I don't know if it's just not.
So I don't know what that is. I don't know. Can you hear me now?
Yep, I can hear you. You're not.
Okay. So one of the biggest things that I know at that moment, it was like maybe this could have been maybe 3 or 4 days prior to this incident. He had told me, he said, hey, I really like you. I got a lot of love for you. And, if you ever tried to leave me, I would kill you. And I kind of laughed it off, but in the back of my head was like, oh, shoot, what did I get myself into? Like, this is a little bit more dangerous than what I thought. But then once he flipped that table over on me, I knew not to give him an inkling that, oh, dude, it's over. There's no way we can kick it anymore. So I just played it off, like, okay, well, so he kept, he got up, he was in a rage. He says, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry I did this. Oh, man, now you're going to leave me. So I'm trying to reassure him that we're cool. no big deal. You probably got some anger issues. You probably got to handle that. But in my head was just trying to figure out, how am I going to ever leave the situation without him hurting me, you know? So you fast forward, that incident happened, and I'm still trying to play both sides. And don't get me wrong, I did like him. I just not like I didn't like him. I mean, he was a likable guy. He was. All our times were not bad times together. We spent a lot of time together between movies, going out to eat, going to the gym, and just kind of sitting and chilling. We all, we spent a lot of time together. So it's not like I didn't like him and I didn't want him to go back to prison, because at that point he had let me know he was an ex-con on parole. He didn't let me know that immediately. And then when he finally told me that, it was like, well, you're a changed guy. It's okay. You seem really nice. And then that was where the spiral came. He was a different human being. It was something different. He was sharing way too much information with me. So you fast forward to my first kind of crazy incident with him. There's a lot of little things that happened in between. But the major one was the night that he had kidnapped me from his place, drove me to where he had a gun. He beat me in the car. He held the gun to my head. And it was only the grace of God that I got away, because he pretty much told me that, he said, this night's not about to end good. I'm not going back to prison. And I told you I don't never want to see you with nobody else. So I had pretty much, I'm telling you, I had given up. I totally had come face to face with death and was like, I guess I'm about to die. And the only thing that kept me from like falling into that trap was I thought about my children. I said, oh my God, they don't have a dad. They cannot not have a mom too. So I immediately just started to pray. I said, I gotta grab my faith. I gotta grab something that's solid. So I just started praying, and I prayed over and over. I said, God, get me home safe to my kids. I was like, are you going to get me through this? But I know that if you get me through this, I am going to be an advocate for domestic violence. If that's what you need me to do, just get me home safe. And I just started reciting scripture. The biggest one was, no weapon formed against me shall prosper. I trust you and I believe you. I was reciting Psalm 91 in my head. I said, God, I know that, if I trust you and believe you, you're going to get me through this. So by the time he had got the gun and had, was punching me in the face in this car. And I just remember telling God, I can take the punch. Just get me safe. Like, don't let them hurt me. Just let me get home safe to my kids. And at that moment, a lot of different things. He was going through my phone. He had my phone. He had my Apple Watch. I had nothing. So it's like I didn't really have an escape. And he knew that. And by the time we got back to his place, he apologized. At some point, I remember praying, and I kept reassuring him that I loved him. I said, but I love you. Stop doing this to me. I really care about you. You just have to get help, and I won't tell anybody, just promise you'll get help. And whatever that energy force was that was in the car, it's almost like it went away. And then he flicked the light on and was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Look what I've done to you. I think I overreacted. Let me take this gun back. And that was kind of how that particular night ended. But at that moment, it was like I didn't know. I mean, even with my husband being a police officer, I had never put in a police report. I never called the police on anybody. I didn't even know what that entailed or what to do. And I didn't know who to tell, because at this point I had told nobody. First of all, I'm this professional woman with a career. I'm not telling nobody that somebody is beating the heck out of me. And, I didn't know how to address that, because then I'm looking crazy. And I'm like, they're gonna think I'm some crazy lady. And which is sad, because people do think that you're the victim and you're crazy, but it's like, and I don't know what people are going to think. So anyway, I told one person, ended up only telling two. And in that process, just kind of got into a fast and prayer mode, because I needed that enemy away from me. And his true colors started to be revealed to me. It was just almost like, oh my God, this is like Satan. This is like a demonic attack, on me. So let me figure it out. And it was that next week where he actually choked me all night. He wouldn't stop choking me this one particular night. And I remember when I had escaped him, I was like, I can't go back. There's no way I can never go back to him. And I had a team of people that pretty much what I had to do is I had to have people pack my house up. I had to get my kids out of school early, have my one daughter not go to work. I had to like be 5 steps ahead of him. I was on the phone with him, talking to him like everything was normal. But at this point, he had choked the mess out of me. And I wasn't telling. I wasn't going to the police. And I had somebody tell me that you need to make a police report. You have to tell. And I'm like, I can't tell, because I kind of still cared about him. I didn't want him to go back to jail necessarily. Just leave me the hell alone. I don't want you to hurt me. And either it's going to be me or you. You're going to kill me or I'm going to kill you. This is horrible. So anyway, I got up enough nerve to go to the police department and put in a police report. Had them meet me with my children at the police department here in this local town. And that was the scariest and hardest thing I did. But it was like, I felt like it wasn't taken serious enough when I went in. Like nobody really knew the fear that was in me. So I told him, hey, I was choked last night. I need to put in this police report. And, he gives me the police report. I write this thing out. I think that's the number one thing that was kind of wrong. I think I needed an advocate right away to come to me and say, hey, what happened? You need to write this thing down. Again, I had never done this before. So by the time I finished the report, I remember giving it to the officer, and he just kind of waved it. He was like, oh, did you want me to call and get his side of the story? And I just looked, I said, hell no. I said, this man will kill me. I can't have you do that. And at this time, I'm supposed to meet him for lunch. So he's blowing up my phone. So I'm like, hey, let me tell you what happened 2 weeks ago. He almost, he kidnapped me. He held me at gunpoint. I've got pictures of bruises of my face. And I'm just like, hey, should I make a separate report? He's like, no, I'm just going to make notes here. Another mistake. And I should have filled out another report then. But he's like, no, I'm just going to make notes here. And I could just tell he wasn't really moved. And I said, look, I'm the widow of a fallen officer. I'm not playing with you. I know girls may come in here lying, but this guy is crazy. And I think he's on his way to my office to harm my staff. I need you to kick it up. And that's when his energy changed. And I just felt like I shouldn't have had to go through all of that. My initial, he choked me last night, should have been enough to say, let me make sure you okay. Are you okay? Because by the time, I guess my biggest thing is by the time somebody's going to tell you that, there's a lot more crap that's happened. That's not it, So that was kind of my initial problem. So what happened when the prosecutor called me the next day, they kind of blew me off. It was just like, hey, did he have his hands around your neck or did he choke you? And I said, no, he choked me. Well, how long did he hold it? I don't know. Well, how did you get out of it? I knew not to fight him because I didn't want him to beat me anymore. So I just sat there until he let me go. Oh, well, this is just a misdemeanor. We're going to give him 93 days in jail. And I said, do you have the notes about what happened 2 weeks ago? I told the officer, oh, yeah, I see some notes here, but that's not what this case is about. So you better be in court or we're going to drop the charges. And it was just like, do I need to come back and fill out another report? And it was just like, oh, I don't know, but you just need to handle it. And I'm telling you, I felt so lost and felt confused. So of course, at this moment, I'm out of town with my children. It's the end of the school year because it's in June. So they've missed school and all kind of craziness is happening. So when I come back to Michigan to just kind of handle some things, I put in the second police report, right? But it was for the first incident. And the way they played me in court is that, oh, he posted bond. So she went back and lied about what happened 2 weeks ago. So it played against me. So you fast forward to all of the trials and pre-trials, and this is going to happen and that's going to happen, and we're going to postpone this and whatever. So the choking incident ended up being separate from the kidnapping incident, and what ended up happening was he got acquitted of all charges of the kidnapping and the beating, and then they ended up throwing out the charges completely for the choking because they didn't try it fast enough and give him his rights to a speedy trial. So he pretty much walked on everything, and it was just, I was frustrated with telling because it's like, this is why people don't tell, because now you've got my blood out here and he'll just come back and do whatever. But God is God, and he ended up serving 2 years anyway because he violated parole or however that worked out. So it worked out in its own way. God, vengeance is God's to repay, and I get that. So he handled that in that way, in that form or fashion. But out of it did come my strength in God, and my faith in God is that much stronger. I am an advocate for domestic violence victims. So if someone ever comes to me, I'm never judging, never judging. I can personally tell you that I am a strong woman, and I know that I have a strength. And I am one who would have said, why would somebody just let somebody beat them? Just leave. Are you crazy? Why would you stay? I totally understand it. I totally understand the web of, I'm trying to climb out, but I'm stuck on the leg now, and I'm trying to climb out, but now my knee is stuck, and you just can't get out of the web. And it was almost like as soon as I was able to leave, I felt like the bricks, like I finally felt the freedom. Like, oh my God, I didn't even realize I was in such bondage. I didn't connect it like that,
Yeah.
So that's where my book stemmed from, because within the first 10 days of me escaping, I wanted him so bad, and I wanted to be back with him. Whatever that bondage thing was, I missed him, and I loved him, and I was like, oh my God, I really want to be with him. But I can see why women would go back, and I know that's not healthy. So God started sending me scriptures, and I'm telling you, every day I would just write the scriptures down, and I ended up coming up with a 7-day devotional where every scripture that I read daily to get away is what I would recommend for other people to get away. And it's just, I just kind of share little bits of my story, but also just kind of give a person the reason, because them first couple of days are rough. I mean, you got to figure out what you got to do. And the only thing that I think kept me from going back to him is because he did go to jail right away. Like they did go arrest him that night. But had they not, I can tell you that he would have swindled me. Oh, I'm sorry, I'll never do it again. Because I was only 3 months into this. So you know that web had just kind of started. But I'm telling you, I don't think I would be alive today, because, and it's not really him. I really think that this domestic violence thing, because it doesn't happen just in men, it happens in women. It's the same demon. It's the same. And when you hear people's stories, it's almost like you feel like, wait a minute, what was your guy's name? Because that sounds like my guy. You know, he did the same thing to me. So my biggest thing is, you know, we have to realize that the mental health part, not for us victims, we need it for the abusers. Like the abusers need help too, because they're gonna go do it to somebody else. It's a whole thing that needs to happen. And I've totally forgiven him. I forgave him the moment I left. I definitely don't want to be with him again. I don't want him to do that to anybody else. I pray that he gets healing and that he can have a family and do whatever with someone else. But I know it won't work with me. But my biggest thing is, you know, I'm just thankful to be here and to be an advocate, to try to help somebody. That's kind of my story.
And Diaji, as you were talking, there were a lot of comments where people like relating to your story and feeling like, you know, same words that they heard, same things that they experienced. And as I was listening, I mean, your case was like a rapid progression, but it was like textbook, you know what I mean? Like the red flags that we teach, like the rushed relationship, the jealousy, the isolating you right away, like it seemed like Prince Charming, like it's like textbook. The red flags. And so really like the way you explained it is such a cautionary tale. You know, in the moment, we don't realize that's what's happening. But when we look back and can really see all those red flags highlighted, it's like, holy crap, step by step. So I was just, one question I had for you, you mentioned that he did not get, the charge didn't stick, something about a speedy trial. What was the reasoning behind that?
So what ended up happening was the first case, which was the one that the original case was from choking me, right? So that was the second incident, but that was the case that kind of went to local because it was a misdemeanor. So it went local to the local courts. So at some, it kept getting postponed. Prosecution and all that stuff. I don't know why it was getting postponed, but at some point it got postponed. And they were like, well, we've got this other, let's see if they're going to charge him with a bigger case first. And I don't know how that went. So once that bigger case started going, they put that one on hold. So every time it came up, they kept postponing it. I don't know law, because I would have said, just try it. You know, they're like, well, if you try it and he gets, you know, he beats this one, then it's going to hurt the big case. If you go back in time, I don't give a darn. You just need to try them. You don't got to do them in no kind of order. Just do them. You know what I mean? So, but what ended up happening is because that case pinned it, and it pinned to after he was acquitted. He came into court and represented himself. He knew what this was the docket of such and such court hearing, whatever, this violation, this right of mine has been violated. This is my constitutional right. I mean, he knew it back and forth, right? So he had gave the judge, and I mean, and what I didn't mention is that during my whole trial time, y'all, he was writing letters to everybody. He wrote letters to my family friends. He wrote letters to attorneys. He wrote letters to the judges. So by the time they saw me, I don't know what picture they saw. You know what I mean? And it sounds like, well, he just wrote letters, but he's one of those very smart, very charming, right? So when I say that his handwriting it's so neat. Like he's not a stupid guy. So he would write these letters, and he's very articulate. So by the time I got with that one judge, and she said, oh yeah, you wrote me a couple of letters. My heart immediately dropped. It dropped right away. I said, oh shoot, he's got her. And before you know it, he got to talking that lingo. Because at first she was like, well, Mr. Such and such, I know you've got these. It looks like the case was postponed because of this on this day and this on that day. So the prosecutor, she says, but I don't know why it got postponed on this day. And she looked at the prosecutor and said, well, why did they postpone it that day? So his response, oh, well, I didn't have the case then. I just got this case 2 months ago, which it did. It flipped attorneys. And he said, I'm not sure. She said, oh, that's not an excuse. That's the Wayne County such and such. You prosecutors, you guys should have that together. And then it went to, oh, so he got acquitted of the charges downtown. So you guys are going to double back and get him on this case. Well, yep, it was just that quick. And I just was like, and she said, where's the victim? Where's the victim? I just want you to know that this is no offense to you. I don't even know the whole story. I just know that, for the legalities that this case cannot, we can't try the case or whatever because his rights was violated. And it was like, but where does that leave me and my children? And who, you didn't even care to hear the story of him. He told me all night, this dude was about to kill me. Like, are you crazy? And it's just like, oh, his speedy trial is whatever. Go back on the street to everybody else. Are you crazy?
So Diaghi basically talked himself out of, these charges, and wow. Does anyone else feel like we need to put this guy's picture up? So it's because again, so charming and smart, and they suck you in. It's terrifying.
Because even when he told me what he did, he told me he was a truck driver. So it was just like, oh, okay, he's a truck driver. Cool. I didn't put 2 and 2 together when he was a garbage truck driver until I was like, oh, ex-con on parole. You can't get another kind of job. You are going to be working at the garbage. You know what I mean? All things started to just make sense and it was too late. It was like, oh my God, I'm stuck in here now. How do I get out of it? How do I get out of the web,
All right. Well, you guys, all your stories are so powerful. And I know, Teresa, you're going to tell us your story next. So I want to give you that time. And I know people are commenting a lot and asking questions. So you guys have a ton of support, a ton of hearts. I love you, saying, just how impressed people are by your strength. So I just wanted to let you guys know. I'm not posting all of them because there'd be so many. It would be overwhelming, but you guys can go back and look. But it's everyone is just supporting you that's watching right now. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you, ladies. As I was listening to you, I thought about how I have buried everything. I just buried it. I wrote my book, and I told my story in my book, and I moved away from it. I don't recognize that young lady in that book, but my story is just similar. I met a young man, and just for purposes of just sparing people, but I met a young man, and it was in the mid-90s, and I don't know what happened. I was trying to think, was he charismatic? Probably not. I don't know what he was, but he soon got control. He was my mental and verbal abuser. There was a time, as Yolene started talking, I did remember that one night in the summer where I too thought that my life was coming to an end, and I laid and prayed. But I'll take you back. We met again. We started dating. I was the breadwinner. And I just honestly don't know with him where things begin to unravel. And I'm being very honest. I don't know. I just know that things escalated, and the mental abuse, you're not good enough. Don't nobody want you. You're ugly. Just talking about me, but yet still there in my home. I don't know. I'm saying it in all sincerity, because anybody who knows me knows I'm very transparent. It's not about trying to come up with something. I just have no clue where things begin to unravel, other than what I do know for sure is the abuse is control. And when a person does not have control of themselves, and when a person is feeling less than, the easiest way to make themselves feel all right is to put their mess on you, to make you the scapegoat. And so it was crazy, just the stuff he was mentally and verbally abusive. He was going through my stuff. DeAndre, he would go through stuff and read stuff, and wherever I left anything, all of a sudden here he comes with, oh yeah, I thought you weren't here. He made phone calls to my male friends, and I had my male friends calling me like, well, so-and-so called me and asked me, were we together the other night? And just doing little things. And I remember that summer night, my daughters called me, and I was at my other friend's house, and I played softball, and we were all hanging out over there. And my daughters called me like, he's sitting out here. He's ducked down in the car, Mama, and he's just sitting there. He must be waiting for you. And I'm like, oh, shoot. And so my friend was like, should I go with you? And I'm like, no, I'm not bringing anybody else into my mess, but I'm going home. And sure enough, I went home, and it was probably midnight when I got home, and he followed me in my house, or I let him in the house. And even in that state of mind, I'm listening to Yolene and Diage, and we just do stuff. We just do. I'm like, okay, just come on in the house, sit down. We're going to talk about this. I don't like you. And at this point in time, we were over. It was done. I had you had already cheated on me. My sister had seen you in my car with another woman, and you had lied to me 120,000 times, and yet you were back in my home. I let you come back. And I'm the one losing it, and I'm the one crying, and I'm the one asking why. And this night, some other things had happened in between, and I'm being honest, I just have buried that part so well that I don't know. But I know this night, even in between that, those gifts you get, it was always, oh, I have a gift for you. And, and on your birthday, I have a gift for you. And I was so like, whatever, whatever. And, he would do little things, just little things. And so one of the times he came over and he had a gift, and it was my birthday, but I was planning to go out with some of my other friends. And he just stood up in the bedroom, and I had shared with him about my sexual abuse. And so he turned that on me and told me, yeah, you're a whore and you're promiscuous, and you trying to talk about you were sexually abused. That's just your excuse for sleeping around. And I'm thinking, dude, like, whatever. And at that time, I was just fed up. And honestly, I don't know if it was before or after. All of this part is just running together. But all I remember is just saying, check this out. Either you beat me down the stairs, or I'm going to call the police, because I'm just over and done with you. Okay? So you make your choice. You done said your piece. You done called me all kind of names. But you've done this on a regular basis. So meet me downstairs, or the police are going to be called. He ended up going downstairs, going out the house. I remember the year that one of my friends I grew up with, her life was taken by domestic violence here in Ypsilanti back in December, I want to say 98. And I remember my mother telling me, like, you can't continue in this relationship. You can't continue. I'm not going to let any man take your life. And I'm thinking, Mom, it is what it is. And so then that's what it was. Then that next summer, because again, it was still an in and out, as Diage said, you don't want to leave, but I had finished with him, but I really hadn't cut ties truly. And so it was always something. It was always you calling me for something. I would have to take my phone off the hook at night because guess what? The phone would ring all night. I would wake up. My girlfriend would call me 2 doors down and be like, 7 o'clock in the morning, he's sitting on your porch. And I'm like, oh my goodness. So with him, it was just on, off, on, off, on, off. And this particular night when my daughters called me and was like, he's home, he's sitting out here. I got to the house and I let him in. We went on talking and, you know, just what happens, the name calling, you ain't this, you ain't that, you a hoe, you whatever. It just escalated and you not this and then the family, your mama, your daddy, your whoever. It was just on and on talking. And he said something funky to me. And I did. I reacted. And you know how to get under a man's skin if you talk about their mama or their sister. And he said something to me, Yolene, and guess what? I was like, and your mama, blase, splee, whatever it was. And he choked me. And literally, he held me, he choked me and threw me on the stove. And he said, bitch, you gonna die tonight. And I literally saw the evilness, that demonic spirit in his eyes. And I said, Lord, all I'm going to ask is that you make sure my children are placed with my sister, that my children are placed with my sister, because I knew then he had, and I felt myself gagging like, and so in the midst, he picked me up and threw me on the basement door, and I slid down, and I ended up having marks on my back because I slid down the basement door. I got up, I got myself together, and I went and sat in the living room. And he was like, I'm sorry. I don't know what happened. I don't want to hurt you, Sharisa. I don't want to hurt you. And I'm like, okay. And I had the phone in my hand, but I never did anything. I just said, okay. And all I kept thinking were my children were upstairs. And I was like, okay, they didn't hear anything. I hope he leaves. And he was like, I just want to stay here with you. And I didn't say no. I just sat there. And for some reason, he decided he needed something out his car. Now, remind you, I said this was at 12 o'clock. When this all started to end, it was 6 o'clock in the morning. And that's what it was. I was thinking, it's people outside. I don't want the police coming to my house. I don't want them seeing the police. I don't want people in my business. So I'm going to just sit here. When he said he had to run to the car, I was like, okay. He ran to the car. I locked the door, ran upstairs like, I don't have to answer the door. About 11:30 that morning, I got a knock on the door. It was candies and flowers and all of this stuff. I'm so sorry. I love you. I love you so much. And I remember just sitting the stuff on the table in the living room. And I guess I just went into another phase because I'm like, this man literally tried. He was like, I had given up the ghost. Seriously, I had just given up like, tonight it's over. And I remember my girlfriend coming over a few hours later and she was like, oh my God, those flowers are so beautiful. And I was like, oh, here, you can have them. Take them home. And she was like, huh? I said, oh, take them home. As me and her were close enough, she kind of knew what was going on. And she said, I'll take them out of your house. That's what she said. I'll take them out of your house. And I said, thank you. And I said, and take the candy too. I don't eat chocolate. He calls and says, did you get the flowers? And I was like, yeah, thank you. And so that went on. And I don't know where it ended. I don't know. I'm hoping that was the last time. But the irony of everything is the guy's house that I was over when this started this evening is the guy I started dating. And that was my physical abuser. He was physically, mentally, verbally. He was just a controller. And he literally, I was And like Yolene, I'm even ashamed to say this. This is other than reading it in my book, this is the first time that I've shared it with the world. Like, this man socked me. This man hit me, physically hit me. This man called me all kind of bitches and whores. This man controlled me, like literally controlled me. And he had nothing, Yolene. He had nothing. Again, I was the breadwinner. He did live in his sister's house. He had a house he lived in. But as you ladies share, like all the signs, like I would be around his family and he would be talking. And I remember his mother and his family sold dinners. And I remember one of the older ladies was helping his mother out and she asked him to do something. And he was so disrespectful to her. And I was just like, you know how you like, who's disrespectful? You know, So that was one of those signs. I had people, men who were telling me, like Sharissa, like he used to jump on his ex-girlfriend. And I'm like, he ain't gonna do that to me. You know, no, we got a better relationship. And, you know, he's a different kind of guy because initially he was charismatic. Now I'm going to say that he was charismatic. He was fun. We shared some things in common. And because we shared some things in common, we played a sport together. So we played that. We traveled with that sport. We did things. And he was like a protector if I'm out with him. But he kept an eye on me too. And I remember one time I was leaving the baseball field and this was I was leaving the baseball field and he was like, oh, here, take my key. You can meet me at my house. And I was like, okay. So this other guy we played with, because we played softball. That's what we did. Our life was softball back then. 5-7 days a week. We traveled out of state. We traveled in state. And so one of the guys was talking to me. And so we pulled out and we ended up being at the light. I was turning left, he was turning right, but we were right there. So we were able to talk to each other. So I went on. I'm like, okay, I'm going to go over his house. When I looked up, guys, my abuser was he had jumped in his car. Now, mind you, he was staying to hang out with the boys because they drank beer and have, you know. I looked up and I'm like, he following me? And here I go to his house and I'm just like, okay. And we're talking and I'm like, he's like, oh no, I just want to come home. You know, I just decided to come hang out with you. And I was like, okay. And then he started asking questions of who and what. And I'm like, that guy, I don't know if he liked me. We just kicking, you know, we softball. That's what we do. We all play. And so escalated there. And then so it went on to, we'll be somewhere. Who's that looking at you? I don't know. You tell me who looking at me. I don't know. I'm a friendly person. I talk to everybody. We out, you know. So why are you talking to them? And I'm like, oh my God. So then he would mention little stuff. And I'm like, how did you see that? And I was way over there and you were. So it just got little things. And one night he came over and he got mad at something. And when I said, he started tagging me in my stomach area and just, I mean, and I jumped up and I was like, he said, and you bet not holler, because my children were upstairs again. He said, and you bet not say anything. And I remember going in the bathroom and just bending over like, what is happening? I was just like, what is going on? Never said a word, never talked about it. One day we were talking and I just said, yeah, well, you know, when you hit me in my stomach, he said, what you talking about? I ain't never hit you. I was like, oh, okay. All right. I said, so you're not going to apologize? He said, well, I mean, if you want an apology, I just apologize, but I ain't never done nothing. And I'm like, okay, wow. Fast forward to all the other stuff that they talk about that's happening in between. Again, we out doing what we do. We out hanging out with our We were after practice, we're hanging out, and we were just talking about stuff that's happening in our lives with our teammates. Got people who show up at our games and we don't know. And so I was telling my one friend, I said, this one guy would just show up and he would always walk from home plate to first base, and we would just stand over there. So, make a long story short, she's like, "Oh, that's my husband," and I was like, "Oh," I said, "It was just strange because he was always there." We went home, guys, and we were sitting in the car. And if any of y'all know about getting your hair braided and how tight that is, how that hurts, I had just got my hair braided. And all of a sudden, he was sitting in the passenger side. He was sitting in the driver's side. No, I was in the driver's side. He was in the passenger side of my car. And he started talking about how disrespectful I was, talking about another man and how I'm not this and I'm not that and I am a little whore and this and that. And before I know it, he grabbed my head and rammed it in the gear shift and just kept ramming it and kept ramming it. And I was like, "What are you doing?" And then I said, "Just be quiet. Don't say anything." And I don't know if I was mad at he had my head and it was hurting so bad, or the fact that my whole face was just sore because he rammed it in again, got out the car, went in the house with his cousins and homeboys. Yolene, I never said a word. I just went in there, talked. We all were talking. My face is just, I'm like, oh my God, it felt like I had my wisdom tooth pulled. But I'm sitting there like, yeah, we're having a good time. I went home and in the trunk of the car, I threw out everything that was baseball related, and that was kids. And then I had to go jump back in the dumpster because I had threw out my bats. Those were some good bats. So I laughed at myself like, oh, I can't throw out all of this. So I'm climbing in the dumpster, pulling out my stuff. And so guess what? He called me that night like, let's go out. What did I do? Went out with him. And we were with his cousins and we were sitting in the back. It was a conversion van. And he wouldn't apologize. What he said was, anything that happened today that may have hurt you, I just want to say that was out of character. And I'm like, you didn't show me, you didn't cuss out your sister, you didn't just little stuff that he has done. I can't even name everything, but all of those things that you see that we talk about, those red flags, it all had happened. And here I was again, sitting there. So to wrap up the story, this last incident, we were going out with friends, and we had something at my mother. We had something annual program at our church, and I told him, I said, "Well, I'm gonna go down to my mom's church, and I'll just meet you over at the bar." And I was always on pins and needles when I went out with him, because if any of his friends showed me any attention, I mean, if they just said, "Oh, Sharice, we're gonna buy you a drink," he would flare up. And so I knew he didn't have any money. So I got to the place and I just put the money in his pocket just to, so if he wanted to act like he was buying drinks, he could do that, right? And so I'm having a good time, guys. I'm really having a good time. And I'm like, okay, he dancing and everything. So I get there and I'm just like, okay. And so they all end up coming back to the table, and they was like, "This round on me." And we like, okay. So I was like, "Well, this round on me." And I remember him looking at me like, "What you doing?" And I'm like thinking to myself, we all friends, So he asked me, did I want to dance? And I was like, "Oh, I don't want to dance off of this song. I'm still having my drink." He then totally stopped dancing, stopped drinking, and sat down next to me. And he was like, "When you think you gonna want to dance?" And I'm like, "I don't know. Let me have another drink. Here I go. I'm drinking, I'm in the festivities." He pinched me. He grabbed me under my arm and turned my skin, pinching me. And he was like, I tell you what, you keep sitting here acting like you don't want to be seen with me and you don't want to be bothered with me. I'm going to fuck you up. And I'm thinking, what are you talking about? Weren't you just, I don't like, that threw me. So he got on up and I went in the bathroom and I was trying to compose myself. He literally broke some skin. So I'm just trying to compose myself. His aunt comes in the bathroom and she says, Sharissa, you got to get out of here. He's going to hurt you. And I'm thinking, I don't know how I'm going to do it because it's only one way in and one way out of this place. And I got to climb 14 stairs because it was in like a house, a basement. I had on wedge heels, mule heel shoes, and a beaded purse. And I'm sitting there. So I go back and sit down and he said, what were you in the bathroom so long for? What were you and my aunt talking about? And I was like, well, nothing. I said, nothing. We were just talking about how good the party is. And I'm just like, okay. He get out on the dance floor and dance again. Nicole, I start climbing them steps two at a time. Next thing I know, he grabbed me from the back. And the way the place is set up, the porch is lower than the parking lot. So the parking lot was sitting right up here. The porch is right here. He grabbed me and I don't even know what. I ended up on the floor. My beaded purse just fell apart. I twisted my ankle because I had on mule shoes. And all I know is there's two ladies in the parking lot. I never thanked those ladies. I don't know who they were, but I said, thank you, Lord. They were walking towards the porch and he heard them. He was like, bitch, meet me at my house. I was like, okay, I'll be there. I said, let me get in my car. He was like, get up, and you better act like ain't nothing going on. I got up. I'm walking to the car and I'm thinking in my head, Lord, if I get in my own car, I'm getting out of here. And he just walking and they like, hello, we like hello. And he was like, I'll be there. It only take 20 minutes and you bet not go anywhere else. Okay. I was thinking at that time, like, yeah, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm going to my mama's house in Ypsilanti. I got to my mother's house. He followed me. We put in the driveway, pulled out, put in. Finally, my sister saw the light. She went and got my mother and was like, Mama, Risa out there, and she keep pulling in and pulling out, and it's another car. We went inside, talked to my mother, and he was so pleasant. Yes, Miss Swanson. You're right, Pastor Swanson. You're right, Pastor Swanson. We shouldn't act like this. You're right. You're right. That is so ugly. I love her. And my mother said, yeah, I know Teresa can have a little sassy mouth. And then I look at my mother like, thank you. Yeah, thank you, Mom, for just giving him a reason, And so me and her just kind of smiled. But after that, before that, I went to my sister's house. And he did not know where that sister lived. And I parked in her driveway. And I was too embarrassed to get out the car and go to her door because I could have stayed there safely that night. But I didn't want to tell her the story. I didn't want to tell her that her big sister was allowing yet another man to abuse her. So I was just like, I'm going to just go home. So that last time I rode home, I was coming down the street one way. He was coming to my house the other way. I kept going and went back to my mother's house. That's when we went in and sat down and talked to my mom. My mom was like, you need to go home and leave my daughter alone. Just go home. He was like, you're right. Enough of this. He went home. I went in the house, ran in the house, locked the door up. And I said, okay, Lord. The phone rung. This is like now about 3:30 in the morning. And he said, bitch, I know where you live. I know where you work. I know everything you do. You forgot we done been together. I'm going to be your worst nightmare. If you come out that door, you don't know what's going to happen. When you pull up in the parking lot at your job, you ain't going to know what's happening. And I was on the phone. So by this time, I'm like, dude, do what you do, because I promise you there'll be no other man put his hands on me. He was more like, it was a smug kind of thing, like, yeah, whatever. And he stutters when he gets upset. So it wasn't like his usually like elevated, but it was just like, yeah, you think I'm playing with you. Next thing I know, guys, it was a boom. And this house I lived in had an old door. So the door was shaking. And he was like, I'm coming in there, I'm effing you up. I got my red robe. I tied my robe. I went in the kitchen. I got a butcher knife. I had the cordless phone in my hand. And I said, Mama, he's back at the house. And she said, tell him to go home. And I said, Mama, he won't. And all this time he yelling. And so now she's like, is that here? I said, yeah. She said, where are my grandchildren? I said, Mama, they upstairs. I got the door closed. They can't hear him. And then I just went into a zone. I remember I blanked out. And the last thing I said to my mother was, it'll be me or him. I'm standing flat-footed with this butcher knife in my hand. When he comes through the door, it's going in his chest. And she said, Sharitha, you're not about to leave here. And she lived around the corner from me. And I thank God, Miss Jessie, the neighbors who wake up at 4 or 5 in the morning and turn the porch light on. She woke up, turned her porch light on, and he jumped in his car and left. And as he was going up the street, my mother was coming around the corner. He called me on the phone, and he was so out of it. He was just cussing and fussing and stuttering. And he was like, I'm going to kill you. I'm going to F you up. You ain't safe nowhere. And my mother kept saying, it's me. It's me. It's Pastor Swanson. It's her mother. He didn't hear any of that. And finally she said, it's me. It is not Sharice on the phone. And he hung up the phone. And that was that. And I wish I could tell you that I left him alone that night. But I didn't.
How much longer after that, Sharisa, did that relationship end?
You know what? I don't know. I just remember the next week, my daughters were playing basketball, and we went to the basketball game together. And I went over his house. And I walked in, and I saw his phone had literally been, ladies, he like destroyed his phone. And this wasn't even a week later. So if this was on a Saturday, it happened Tuesday, because they played on Tuesdays and Thursdays at that time. This was a Tuesday, and his phone was literally mutilated. And I sat there, and he was like, did you do this? And he was like, you don't want to talk about it. You don't want to talk. When I get angry, when I get upset. And all I could think was, God, you are so amazing. You are so amazing. Because if he did that to his telephone, imagine if he had got to me that night, what he would have done to me. And so we went on probably for a couple more years until some other stuff had happened, and I finally left him. But the point is, I never called the police on him. My first abuser, I did do a PPO, but even that was difficult. It wasn't an easy process. It wasn't just going in there telling my story. It wasn't an easy going thing. And so I was just like, okay, I got this. It didn't make any difference, because he still came around. He still came in my perimeter. But the last guy, I never told. I don't think I ever told my family. I finally did once I wrote my book. But while we were together, I never talked about being abused. I never talked about the seriousness of what he did. I never talked about how he literally put his hands on me, how he hit me. I just never talked about any of that. And this is my first time even talking about it out loud, outside of sharing it with my close circle.
Thank you for sharing it with us tonight. It's been incredibly powerful, and sitting here listening to you, like someone else had said they were getting goosebumps, and I was too, because so many of the things that he said to you were things that were said to me. Like, I'm going to hunt you down. I'm going to find you. All that stuff was, the same words to behavior in me that my ex used, and the gaslighting, you know, telling you that something really didn't happen when you clearly knew it happened.
Yeah.
They're so good at twisting and manipulating. And I think throughout everyone's story, it's really important for people to understand, like, when we tell our stories, we have to talk about the bad, you know, to really get and point out the red flags. But in between the bad, there's good that gives us hope and makes us want to believe that these people are still good people and they can change, and, you know, those loving feelings come back. So it's just, I think people might be watching that, fully understanding that. So we tell our stories that way so that we can really focus on the abuse part, but just know that in between, there was loving time and promises that give victims hope that there can be change and things can get better. So, and I'm looking at the time, I'm like, we needed a 2-hour show. Holy cow. But I mean, you guys, all three of you tonight completely blew out of the water any stereotype that anyone would ever have about a domestic violence victim.
Right.
You know, in terms of, it can't happen to strong people. It can't happen to educated people. It can't happen to people with strong family connection.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You know, it can truly happen to anyone. And it's so powerful to hear all of you speak. A few things I definitely want to get to, in terms of, you know, the topic of the show being domestic violence and the Black community. And if there are unique barriers that you think are faced by victims in the Black community that might not be faced by other racial backgrounds.
I would just say that,
oh, go ahead.
I know me as a Black woman, I did not want to call the police on my Black male, the Black man. I didn't want to call the police because I didn't want them in any more trouble. I didn't want the trouble to escalate. You know what I'm saying? I just didn't want, you know, I don't want another Black man locked up. And then the stereotypes, you know, people really believe that Black women are so strong that we can just handle anything. And I think we continue to perpetuate that stereotype that we really can. So we don't. And then we don't want to also, even doing that, we don't want to also seem as weak either. You know what I'm saying? Because people always see us so strong, we don't want to be considered weak or less than or whatever label they may put on us because we didn't leave. Like Ajay said, within 3 months, hers blew up, but she saw the red sign within the first week of the first conversation. And yet we still have that loving, let's give everybody a chance. And it must be, you know, they're going to do something better. And I don't want people to see me as anything other than what I am. So
I think that there's a couple things. I think for one thing, you know, my abuser actually said to me on a few different occasions, he said, you know, you would never call the people on me, the people, right? You would never call them and put them on me. And I think that is one of the things that, you know, you get a lot of guilt around. Are you calling the police? And especially in light of all these societal things going on, you get twisted in your head to thinking you're doing something wrong by calling the police on someone that is, you know, abusing you. And it's we should be calling, like, really, like, no matter what's going on in society, the reality is the vast majority of police get up every day and go to work and want to do the right things and are good people. And I think that you get twisted and gaslighted and manipulated into thinking that, you know, somehow they're bad or somehow they're not here to help you and serve you and support you. And so you get twisted into thinking not to call. So you try to sort it out and figure it out. And maybe I shouldn't call the people. Maybe I'm not supposed to do that and call on this Black man. I'm going to figure out how to work it out and figure it out. And then you're just in so deep. And, you know, I think that it's one of those things in the Black community that people talk about, that whether it be domestic violence, like, oh, people just fight. They got bad temper. They fight, not realizing they don't fight. He's beating her ass, right? Mm-hmm. Like that's what's happening. And so between that and molestation, we keep that secret. We don't tell anybody. Everybody knows what's going on. Everybody knows who it is, who are the bad people. Everybody, but no one talks about it because the stigma's attached to it. So you just learn, like, Okay, well, I guess we just don't talk about that. And then when you're the person, like what you said, Sharisa, when you're supposed to be strong, or you're supposed to be a certain type of person, then you think, I'm supposed to be strong, so I'm just not I'm gonna figure it out because I'm smart, I'm strong. Surely I can fix this. And you think that you can love someone through it. That the whole problem is, I don't want my family to break down. I did this, I was married for 18 and a half years, really 19 and a half by the time the divorce was final. And I thought, for the sake of my children, I need to fix this. I need to hold my family together. And it took me a really long time to realize, no, I don't. I need to role model strength for my children so they can really understand what the right things are. But those stereotypes and those what we think are our norms are what holds us into dysfunctional and unsafe situations for years on end. So,
Diaji, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, absolutely. It was a kind of especially with going into the police department. The second time for sure, I kind of got the impression that I was not really taken seriously because I was an African American.
Yes, you're breaking up a little bit. Again, is she breaking up for you guys?
Yes.
Just a little.
Sorry, did it pick that
Yeah,
up?
it sounds better.
Are we okay? Better? Okay. Let me know if the biggest thing is I went back to the police department to put in the second report. It was a younger officer who took my report at that time. He didn't seem moved, and I don't know if it was just because I was a Black girl. I never really cried telling my story. It bothers me, but the defense mechanism I have, I don't cry when I tell it. I don't get emotional. And in his report, he put that I was smiling and laughing as I told him what happened to me, that I looked very healthy. And that played against me also in court. So it's like I almost felt screwed on every end, just being an African American. I mean, it was just the judge that I had was African American. His attorney was an African American woman, and they were friends. His attorney pays into that judge's campaign fund or something. I don't know. I knew they were friends by the way things played out in the court and the way I felt in court. But it was like at the end of the day, I felt like everybody had betrayed me, like I'm an advocate for police because my late husband was an officer. So I know there are good officers out there. So I fight for the good officer. So how dare you play me like that and put a stupid thing in a report to say that when I'm telling you that something serious has happened to me. And then you have two Black educated women. Like, I'm an educated woman like you. I fight for you. I would never do nothing to hurt you. How dare y'all play against me in the courtroom for this piece of crap guy who's hurting people? And then even for him, I felt like, look, I gave you a chance. I was nice to you. I only loved you. For you to beat me and do these things to me, I feel like nobody had my back. Everybody that I had trusted, I felt like I was this lonely Black girl who nobody really cared about, and I felt like even for the jury, for the most part, it was kind of like a Black on Black crime. Like, whatever, this guy hurt his little girlfriend, she mad, I'm just gonna let go. And I honestly feel had I been a white woman that it might not have turned out the same way, And it was just little things. Like I couldn't mention that he had a history of this. Like I found out that 10 years ago from that date that he had actually kidnapped someone else and done the same thing. We couldn't get that in court. So history was tainted anyway. So that's like race plays a huge role. Have gone to jail, you know what I'm saying? They served time, but I mean, I don't know if you can always just relate it to race. I just think that falls into domestic violence is not really taken seriously. So, on top of that, as a Black woman, it's like you know what I mean? It's not really taken serious. And you're just a Black girl. It's you're strong, you'll get through it. But I feel like race can play a part in it in a huge way. But again, being a victim, you get victimized over and over again when you do go through the process.
I'm actually curious of the connection, Sharisa, when you talked about having previous, sexual abuse. And I'm really curious if there's a connection statistically. Nicole, you may know, or maybe that's something I can look up later, about a connection between people that have been victimized, sexually in whatever way, whether it be, as a child or a young adult or whatever, and then those that are then in domestic violence situations. I wonder what that connection is. I know my own story, and I wonder what that connection is.
I don't know if there is a connection. I'm sure there's some statistics out there, Yolene, but I know for me, being sexually abused, it literally, not even me knowing it or recognizing it until I was well into my 30s, of how it destroyed every part of me. And so putting up with men, and that's one of the reasons why I do have my business, and I do coach women, and I do encourage women, and work on empowering, because there are some things that get to you that shape your life and shape your thought. And that sexual abuse had me really thinking that I was ugly, that there had to be something wrong with me. You know, I have 5 other sisters, and so I compared myself to them, and that, you know, something had to be wrong with me. You know, we didn't have the same father, although their father raised me, and I love my daddy, but it was just like there had to be something wrong with me. So every man I got in a relationship with, I held on to him, you know. So no matter what happened, I held on because I wanted to be loved, and I thought sex equaled love. And so if we were having sex, you had to love me. And so that was such a disturbing thought pattern that I was in. But I know women, I worked in the prison for like 6 or 7 years, and I worked in the women's prison. And that was some of the things that I did find that it keeps you constrained. It keeps you in that, it keeps you. And then the things that we grow up with, not telling, you know what I'm saying? Keeping secrets and not telling. So I don't know, Diaje, if it is a Black thing, if it is an African American community. I do know domestic violence crosses all lines, but I know that we are so, as Black women, we're just taught to be strong and to move and to go with the flow and say a prayer and things are going to work out. So you do just get up. You get up every day. You just get up. Like with my abuser, we would argue before we go out, but you didn't know that, Yolene, because we just end up going out, having a good time, and then go back in the house and whatever, you know, if you thought you saw whoever talking to me, or if you thought you saw me look back a second time. So I just know that being sexually abused, for me, it taught me for so many years that there was something wrong with me. And so for me to be able to fix it was for me to have a man in my life and have him like me and have him, and I'm going to do whatever I can to be the good woman. I didn't say wife, but good woman, you know, so.
And I can kind of just address that in terms of like the data piece, statistics piece. It is there's a very high correlation between child abuse, not even differentiated between sexual abuse, physical abuse, neglect, and becoming a victim or an abuser. Very high correlation. And then of course you do have the children who just witnessed it, were not necessarily a victim of any type of abuse, but witnessed it. So imagine having both, you know, or maybe physical abuse, sexual abuse, and living in a household
with abuse.
Violence is occurring, you know, how much higher your rate is, your chances for becoming a victim or an abuser based on your childhood trauma history and things you've experienced. It's almost an hour and a half. So I want to ask you last question. It's so powerful. And Teresa, something that you just said, this is for any victim, but especially for Black female victims, because you said people, like society expects you to be strong and, you know, that this can't happen to you. And what advice would you have for a victim who's in an abusive situation right now, who feels ashamed to speak up, who feels, you know, afraid to say anything, doesn't want to let people with you guys, just like a few, you know, best advice tips that you would give someone who's watching, because it's, you know, very possible someone is watching right now who is in, hearing all these things and living what you guys lived through. So, and whoever wants to go first can go ahead, but I think it would be really powerful.
Well,
I'll tell you.
go ahead.
First thing is the devil works the best in silence and when things are secret.
Mhm.
Find one person to confide in, and that starts to break chains for sure.
Yeah.
Just immediately go to the police. You'll have somebody that's actually an advocate with you, and you need an accountability partner, because once you start moving your feet forward, you want somebody to keep pulling you, because you will go backwards. And to be really willing to talk, and you have to just say, hey, be transparent with this person. Just find somebody to tell. Break the silence would be my biggest thing. Of course, if you're in danger, call the police, by all means. It doesn't always work the same way with everybody else. However, call the police, speak up. At least find one person that you can confide in, though, and I think that will at least start breaking chains and help you start the process to getting away.
That's amazing advice. Thank you.
I'll say that what I learned is that by me being embarrassed or me being humiliated by people knowing, well, you've let it get this far, so why are you telling her? Why? Like, everything that happened, that's all that I would think about. I would focus, and each time I thought of getting out or how to get out, all I thought of is I was eventually going to have to tell my story, and that question would be, how come you tolerated that for so long, or how come you let it get that far? And so what I finally learned was that, my embarrassment empowered him more and more.
Mhm.
And it took me a very long time to realize that, me getting out, he should be embarrassed, not me.
Mhm.
That I've worked hard in taking care of my children and done all the things, that I'm not the one that should be embarrassed. And that's the hard part, that, people are not going to judge you for trying to keep your family together, or trying to love someone, or trying to fix something you didn't break. People are not going to judge you for that the way that you think that they will. Then on the other side, people will recognize the strength and the intestinal fortitude it takes to get out and move forward. So my advice to people would say, it's never too late to get out, because if you stay, it's never going to get better. It's going to get worse.
Excellent advice also. Absolutely.
I would say, I would echo, keeping secrets keep you sick, and they keep you in a sick place. The abuser is the center of it all is control. Once they captivate your mind, everything else follows. And then, as Yolene said, that I'm embarrassed. What are people going to say? But it goes back to finding someone that you can trust. Someone that you can trust. And you tell them, share it with them. Share every step. And as Diaje said, accountability partner. And begin to walk the steps, because there will be promises made. There will be flowers sent. You'll have more candy than you can ever eat. You'll get
tears.
Okay. You're going to get a new hairdo. And that's all back to the controlling you. Once you talk about it, the talking about it, it begins to free you. You actually begin to hear yourself. You begin to hear the story that you're telling, and it becomes real. And then you actually see yourself. You begin to see yourself, and you realize that this ain't cool. And if you have children, one of the things that I thought about is, I don't want my daughters to grow up thinking that this is all right. I don't want them thinking that this is the way you have a husband, a boyfriend, a man in your life. And so you're going to have to take it. It's difficult. I promise you it is, because as you heard, all three of us, we all just stayed. We had thoughts of going back. We didn't really move. We made some 3 steps forward, but some of us just stayed there for another 3 years or whatever. So I would just say, break the silence. Break the silence, and then talk to your own self. If you say I'm a fool, you don't have to worry about what people say, because you're like, okay, I'm a fool. I already said I'm a fool, so I'm gonna tell you this, Yolene. I'm a fool. This, you know what I'm saying? So, yeah,
You're never.
yeah. But what I'm saying is, when you're talking to yourself, thinking about what people have said, you've already said it to yourself. So we done got that part out the way. I done stayed 7 years. I already know this. So let me, So yeah, because it really takes, again, what statistics say, 7 times to even leave. So it takes 7 times to get out of it. There has to be a plan made. And I would also say this. That's when you're talking to someone, you begin to make your plan of escape.
Mhm.
You begin to work that plan out. Because again, he has captured he's captured your mind. So yeah, the physical, the mental, the verbal, the financial, the isolation.
So amazing advice from everyone. And I think finding a safe person, somebody, could be anybody, right? It could be a friend. I know, Yolene, there was someone in particular that you reached out to that then reached out to me and connected us. But just having and it doesn't have to be a family member or even a close friend. There might be someone else that you feel safer going to because they're not a family member or safe friend or a friend. So, but talking about it, you guys being on tonight and talking about this and bringing attention to domestic violence and domestic violence in the Black community and that it can happen to anyone is so powerful because you're breaking societal stereotypes, domestic violence down. And you're also, through all of your stories, you guys have educated so many people about what to look for with the red flags and the cycle, like just naturally in your stories, you've shared so much knowledge. I don't even know if you guys realize. It was so powerful, your stories, and so many people commenting about relating to them too. But also, I'm hoping there are a lot of people who aren't familiar, and you guys have taught them, if they're family or their friend, if this happens to, they know now, maybe have a better understanding of how to approach it or why they keep going back. So thank you all so much for being on tonight.
I want to say thanks for having us, Nicole, and thanks for facilitating, because, for me, it was powerful that I've never told my story publicly or out loud until today. And I'll tell you, it's cathartic. And, I struggled through parts of it, but I'm thankful for the opportunity to do that in the hope that it can help someone else.
And I just want to say, for those out there who know someone that is going through, just don't ask, why are they staying? Don't ask that question. Don't ask, why are they staying? Don't ask, why did they go back? Be there for them. Be there for them whenever they come back out of it. Listen to their story. Take notes. Be ready to be of assistance when it's needed. That is the worst thing that you want to hear people asking, why did you stay? Like, if I had that answer, I probably wouldn't have stayed. Why are you going back? There's so many reasons. I keep emphasizing, because what people always see is a physical abuse. They don't know the mental abuse that you've gone through way before it gets to him hitting on you. They don't know the verbal abuse that has taken place. They don't know how he has so isolated you from your family and your close friends. You just going to work and you making sure that he ain't gonna just pop up at work, because that part has happened to me too, popping up at my job. So I would just encourage those who have someone that's in this struggle to be there for them in all sincerity, and not ask questions of, why are you still there? Why are you going back? Why don't you just call the police? Because honestly, if it was that easy, I promise you, all 3 of us, we would have did it like, the first week, Diage? Yeah. It would have been done when he had you in the car, when he had you strangling you and punching you and putting the gun. You would have called the police then, if it was that easy to just call the police.
And I think there's another common thread. Oh, yeah, I can hear you. Sorry.
I was going to say that that's one thing that I think that as a bystander, someone, the first thing to do is love on that victim. Just love on them.
Yeah.
To do is just, what is it that you, it may not be to us right away.
Right.
Something else. So just ask them, what is it that you need from me to help? And don't worry about the just know that when you do something like that, it lets them know that I do have somebody that I can lean on. Just what is it that you need from me in this moment? And that's simple enough. Like, you don't want to go to the person that's like, I can't believe you're still there. I can't believe, we had this talk. You don't need any of that. All you need is what is it that I can do for you in this moment, and love on them, whatever that may be situation.
I'm just posting a few facts on the bottom that I had saved up, but then got so engrossed in your guys' stories that I forgot to share them. So Black women experience intimate partner violence at rates 35% higher than white women. And statistics also are telling us that about 54% of Black women are survivors of intimate partner violence. So more than half. So when we're saying to people like 1 in 3 women are victims, we're looking at more like 1 in 2. Sorry. Sapphire just wanted to say hi to all of you. She can't be not obnoxious for an entire hour. But yeah, so we're basically saying more than 1 in 2 Black women are victims of intimate partner violence, which is unacceptable. It's 2020, almost 2021. We're saying half of Black women are victims, or going to be if we don't make some drastic changes in how we're approaching this huge problem. So that's another show that I'd love to have you back for, to talk about where we go from here in terms of turning these numbers around. I mean, it's domestic violence is growing, domestic related homicide is growing, and not surprising because all 4 of us almost died more than once. And for whatever reason, we're here, and we're here to use our voices and share our stories and continue to try to help people. Thank God. But it's just, I would love to have you guys back on to kind of talk about where do we go from here into changing this around.
Change the narrative.
We'd love to.
Yes.
Domestic
Awesome.
a 90-day thing in jail, because I've had my user tell me that before. Well, if I do that, if I hit you, it's just 90 days in jail anyway.
Oh yeah, yep, absolutely. And we've talked about the legislation issues, and I know people are sick of me saying this, but the address confidentiality bill, the petition's on the Enough page, is on my personal page. Please sign it. The clock is ticking down very quickly. If it's not passed by December, it is dead again. So I thought we'd be a lot further than we are right now a year ago, but here we still are. So we just need to, I think we need to make as much noise as the other subsets of people in our state who get bills passed right away, or animals, or whatever, the lobbyists. I think we need to be louder, and we need to raise our voices higher. So we can definitely talk about that. And I look forward to working with all of you in your, nonprofits. And Yolene is actually joining me next week to do an event with North Carolina A&T on Thursday evening. So I'm really excited about that. And then this Sunday, we are having a live at 7:00 again. Sorry, I'm reading these comments too. It is men. We have 3 male victims of domestic violence that will be coming out and sharing their perspective and what it's, they've gone through as a male victim and the obstacles that they've faced. So looking forward to that. So anyone who's watching, please join back. And Shaheen just asked us, what can we do to help? We will definitely make a list, because there's lots of things, and we'll be working together more and talking about events. So come and support us and just raise your voices as well. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate you.
Thank you, ladies.
And thank you everyone from watching. If anyone has any other questions, the guests will continue to just check on the comments, and if there's anything that they can answer, we will make sure that happens. All right, have a good day, everybody.
Thank you, ladies. Bye. Bye.